Every once in a while, a story comes along that is so unbelievable, so heart-stirring, that it feels like it could only belong in the pages of a fairy tale. But this story is real. It is the story of a pampered house cat who, against all odds, became the foster mother to a wild bobcat kitten. It's a story about loss and love, about survival and compassion, about how two lives that should never have crossed paths somehow found each other in the most unexpected way. And it all began with a cat named Snowflake. The calm life of Snowflake. Snowflake was not just any cat. With her pure white fur and bright blue eyes, she looked as though she had stepped out of a storybook herself. She was adored by her family, spoiled with soft blankets, good food, and endless affection. Her days were simple and safe. She stretched lazily in the morning sun, battered at toy mice without a care in the world, and purred herself to sleep in the comfort of a loving home. Snowflake had never known hardship, never known hunger, never known fear. To her, the world was warm, safe, and kind. But life has a way of testing even the most unlikely of hearts. Snowflake, the pampered princess of the house, was about to be given a challenge she never could have imagined. The lonely orphan. Far from the safety of Snowflake's cozy home, deep in the untamed woods, another life was unfolding, one filled not with comfort, but with tragedy. A young bobcat kitten had lost his mother. We may never know exactly how it happened. Perhaps she was struck down by hunters. Perhaps she was claimed by a larger predator. Or perhaps she simply vanished into the wild, leaving her kitten too young, too small, too fragile to survive on his own. The kitten was found curled up in the brush, shivering, his tiny chest rising and falling with frightened breaths. His cries echoed with desperation. He was hungry, confused, and utterly alone. Rescuers brought him to safety, but they knew there was only so much humans could do. What this little bobcat needed most wasn't just food or shelter. It was love. He needed warmth. He needed to feel the comfort of a mother's heartbeat. Without it, he might survive in body, but he would never heal in spirit. An unexpected meeting, and so fate intervened. The orphaned bobcat was carried into Snowflake's home. To the humans, it was a risky experiment. After all, Snowflake was no wildcat. She was gentle, pampered, and perhaps too delicate to understand the cries of an untamed creature. Would she reject him? Would she hiss, scratch, or hide away? But as the small bobcat was placed on the floor, trembling with uncertainty, something extraordinary began to happen. Snowflake did not run. She did not arch her back or bare her teeth. Instead, she walked slowly toward the frightened kitten, her blue eyes soft with curiosity. The little bobcat crouched low, his tiny body shaking. His instincts told him to fear the unknown. Yet Snowflake bent her head, sniffed him gently, and seemed to make a decision. In that instant, she didn't see a predator. She didn't see a stranger. She saw a baby in need. The first embrace. Within moments, Snowflake lay down beside him. She stretched her warm body across the cold floor and curled around him as though he were her own. Then, softly, she began to purr. The sound filled the room like a lullaby, steady and soothing. To the bobcat, it was the closest thing he had felt to his mother's heartbeat since she was gone. Slowly, his trembling eased. He pressed into her fur, closed his eyes, and for the first time in days, he slept. It was a moment so pure, so unexpected, that those watching could hardly believe it. In that instant, a bond had been born. A pampered house cat had taken on the role of mother to a wild orphan, a bond beyond instinct. From that day forward, the two were inseparable. Snowflake groomed him, licking his fur until it shone. She allowed him to knead her belly as though nursing, even though she had no milk to give. She tolerated his tiny claws and teeth, never once lashing out. For the bobcat kitten, she became his entire world. Her warmth replaced the cold of the forest. Her steady purr replaced the cries of loneliness, and her gentle patience began to reshape the way he saw the world, not as something cruel and heartless, but as something that could be safe and kind. It was as though some instinct buried deep within her had awakened. She may not have given birth to this kitten, but she loved him as if she had. Lessons of love and discipline. As the days passed, the bobcat grew stronger. His paws grew larger, his leaps more powerful, his play more daring. And with this strength came sharp claws and a wild instinct that could not be tamed. But Snowflake was patient. When he pounced too hard, she corrected him with a gentle swat. When his play became too rough, she pulled him close and soothed him with a purr, thriving under her care. The transformation was astonishing. The frightened, lonely kitten was now a playful, curious young bobcat. His eyes no longer held sorrow, but sparkled with life. He wrestled with toys, chased shadows across the floor, and explored every corner of his new world with bravery. But no matter how adventurous he became, he always returned to Snowflake. She was his anchor, his safe place, his mother. When the world felt overwhelming, he pressed himself into her fur and remembered he was loved. For the humans watching, it was a daily miracle. They had expected division, maybe even rejection, but instead, they witnessed unity, a housecat and a bobcat, living not as enemies, but as family. The shadow of goodbye. But as all mothers know, children grow, and with growth comes the day when a child must step into the world on their own. The bobcat was no longer a helpless kitten. His instincts were sharpening. He was becoming wild again, strong, independent, untamed. The walls of the home that once sheltered him now seemed too small for the creature he was destined to be. Snowflake seemed to understand. She did not cling. She did not hold him back. Instead, she gave him space, watching with quiet acceptance as he tested his strength, preparing for the life that awaited him. It was as though she knew her role was temporary, that her gift was not to keep him, but to ready him. The day of release. The day came when rescuers carried the young bobcat to the edge of the wilderness. The forest stretched before him, vast and mysterious. This was his true home, the place where he belonged. At first, he hesitated. The trees were dark, the shadows unfamiliar. He looked back with wide eyes, the same eyes that once held fear, now holding uncertainty. And there in the distance sat Snowflake, calm, still, watching him with eyes full of quiet strength. She did not call out. She did not follow. Her gaze seemed to say, "Go on, my child. You are ready." With one last glance, the bobcat stepped forward. His paws touched the soil of the wild, and with a leap, he disappeared into the forest. He was no longer the trembling orphan of before. He was strong, confident, and free. The mother who gave her heart. Snowflake returned to her home, to her sunlit windows, her cozy blankets, her life of peace. But she was not the same cat she had been. She had given a piece of her heart to the wild, and in doing so, she had proven something powerful, that love knows no boundaries. She had stepped into a role no one expected of her, a role that demanded patience, sacrifice, and unconditional affection. And in the process, she had changed a life forever.